Hello and welcome to Beebe Book Buzz, the program where your Wakefield librarians gather to chat about the fabulous things they've been reading recently and share them with you so that you can pick your next great read. My name's Karen Stern and I'm from the reference department at the library, and I'm here with my colleagues Alyssa Staples and Beth Radcliffe, also from the reference department. We have a really great variety of things for you to hear about today, so I think we're going to get started. Beth, what have you been reading recently?
Well, I just read this wonderful book called The Wilding Sisters by Eve Chase. And it begins in 1959. It's told from the point of view of Margot, one of four sisters. And they spend the summer, they are sent to the English coast to spend the summer with their aunt and uncle. And the aunt and uncle's daughter has disappeared 5 years ago. Nobody knows what happened to her. Everybody thinks she's dead except for her mother, who thinks she is still alive. The next chapter of the book, it moves the action to the present day. And it's a blended family, and they're moving from London to Applecote Manor, the manor that the four girls spent the summer at. And the husband and wife want to leave London because they want to leave behind their past. But the teenage daughter of the father, she doesn't want to leave London. That's where her life is. Right. And that's where her mother died. Her mother died of cancer. So when they move to this new house, she's not very happy about it, and she becomes obsessed with the daughter that died in 1959.
In the 1950s story.
Right. So she becomes obsessed with her. So that mystery runs through both timelines, and it keeps on alternating chapters back and forth between the two timelines. So it does have the mystery, but I wouldn't say that that's what this is. It's more about relationships, about the four sisters and their relationship, the relationship they have with their aunt, the relationship they have with the neighborhood boys, the relationship that they have with their mother. And then the other story, the one that takes place now, that's the triangle of the father, his daughter, and his second wife, and all of their interactions. She does a wonderful job of drawing all these characters. Their voices are spot on. Margot and her sisters, they all have very distinct voices, very distinct traits. And then if you compare them as teenagers in 1959 to Bella, who's the teenage stepdaughter, so different. You could just recognize her as a teenager today. She's huffy, she's impatient, very disdainful. The other character dimension is the house. The house is a whole other character in itself. It makes it kind of Gothic-like that the house has this sensibility, but it's not as gloomy or moody as Gothic books are. So it's a multi-layered tale about young love, jealousy, and the mystery mixed in with it.
With a time
shift too. Yeah, the alternating chapters.
Sounds like, who does it remind me of? It reminds me of.
Well, Kate Morton is very similar because she also has mysteries running through stories that are about relationships, and she also does some time shifts.
Right.
She wrote The Lake House, and she wrote Keepers, what was it? Secret Keepers.
Secret Keepers, that's right, yeah. Yeah, that was definitely who came to mind. So the house kind of holds the mystery throughout the time?
I think the house and the mystery. The mystery serves to create tension throughout it. I think they're both like threads weaving through it to sew them together. And the 1959 does come up to the present.
Okay.
So some of those relationships filter into today's world. Yeah, it makes it really fascinating.
So is it atmospheric? Do they give a lot of detail to the house or the property?
Yeah. I don't think it's as sinister as Gothic, but it's definitely got a personality.
There's a lot of books like that with where the house becomes its own.
Takes on its own life.
Yeah. We could probably do a whole list of those.
I know,
that's great.
Some other authors that are like her in relationships would be Elizabeth Stroud.
Right. Yes.
Also Ken Haruf, but his are much more
So more kind of simplistic,
simplistic,
and
quiet. Exactly. And
What's the writing style like compared to, say, some of these other authors? Is she a little more on the literary side, or is she more on the?
I wouldn't say she's the high literary, but I think she's got beautiful writing.
Place? Does it show? Do you get a feeling for the setting besides the house?
Yes, I do think that the setting is really well done. The English countryside, the isolation of it, the hustle and bustle about when they talk about London. You'd love that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that she does do that well. I think that that's part of describing the house, and the house as the character,
Right.
and the estates and the grounds.
Yeah,
So I
sounds
do
good.
think so.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Anybody? Oh yeah, she's also like Ann Patchett, not Ann Patchett, Amazon State of Wonder or Bel Canto, but her latest, which is Commonwealth, because that's really
Right.
about relationships.
That's what families and relationships
Families
and the
and-
glues,
yeah,
the things
blended
that
and stuff.
bind
Yeah.
them and the things that
Yeah.
break them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Great.
So I really enjoyed that.
That sounds really good.
So that's the Wilding Sisters.
The Wilding Sisters by Eve Chase.
Great, thanks.
So I am also reading a bit of a mystery. So this is John Scalzi's Lock-In. However, the mystery, I think you said the same thing about Wilding Sisters, it does take a back seat
Yeah.
to the larger story. So the mystery in this one really takes a backseat to the sci-fi world building that goes on. Basically, it's kind of a genre blend. It's got a bit of mystery. It's almost got a standard police procedural running throughout. But again, that's all secondary to the fact that this book is set in the near-ish future, in which a virus kind of sweeps the entire world and kills millions. So those who do survive, there are some that just come down with a flu and they survive and it's fine. And there's a small 1%, which actually isn't small when you think about it. It's about, I think they said 5 million US citizens. After a third stage of the virus, they suffer from what's known as lock-in. So they get a full body paralysis, but their mind is
God.
fully functioning. I know. It's terrible. So in this kind of present day of the book, it's 25 years after that, the government has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into creating assistance programs for the sufferers of what's come to known as Hayden's syndrome. That's the lock-in kind of syndrome. And right at the beginning, you learn that the government has passed a bill to cut off all assistance. So right away, there's a very political kind of social upheaval and an uprising of the rights of the people who are dependent upon this assistance and kind of the greedy businessmen who are working to take advantage of the privatization of the assistance and the money that can be made. So you're learning about all of this, and a murder happens in the middle of it all. So this is where the kind of police procedural mystery comes in. We follow one protagonist and who's an FBI agent by the name of Chris Shane, and his partner, Leslie Vann, who have both at some point in their lives contracted the virus. Leslie worked through the virus and still can function fully in her body, but Chris, after suffering from the virus, did get locked in.
So how does he do his job?
So it's a very complex system and Scalzi does a great job of describing the technical
Right.
issues that happen, but essentially Chris uses what they call a threep, which is short for C-3PO, which is basically a kind of a humanoid robotic transport device.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
human-shaped robot
Right.
that kind of can work within the physical world.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very cool concept.
And what's the relationship like
Yeah, I was gonna-
between the two main character, or is he kind of the main character, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's first person through Chris Shane,
Oh, okay.
the agent.
Okay.
And it's interesting because the relationship can be read a number of ways. And that the reason that can happen is because Chris Shane is never given assigned a gender.
Wow.
Throughout the entire book.
Wow.
So there's no gender pronouns assigned to Chris.
That's kind of amazing.
And
that
it's
you can do a
super
whole book
subtle.
without not even a they or anything.
No, and I didn't even notice until I read about it after.
Wow.
So how do they do the audio?
Okay, so the audio there's two versions of it. So
wow.
one is read by a female voice actor and one's read by a male. So depending on which one you're given is kind of how you assign gender to the
Wow.
character. But that gives you a lot of freedom to kind of think about gender identity and what it means to move about in the world with a gendered body or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it also affects how you read their relationship.
Wow.
And it's,
Wow. So there's a lot of big ideas in this book.
that's what it really is. It's an ideas book.
Right.
And again, for the mystery lovers, I wouldn't say that's the draw. It's
Right.
about someone who wants to ruminate on really larger issues.
So there's a lot of world building that has to go on in this book.
Yes.
Because you've mentioned a few
Yeah, the
terms and
hiding-
things.
hiding-
I know, I'm
and
sorry.
the
It probably
freaks.
got a little heavy because
there's
there's a lot to learn in a small amount of time.
Right, right.
There's actually a short novella that he wrote, or I think he published it online, that Scalzi published online. It took me about 45 minutes to read. It's super short, but it's about the immediate aftermath of the virus and how the entire kind of, well, it's the United States, but the government and the CDC, and it's the immediate repercussions
Right.
of it. So
Yeah.
for me, reading that, I wish it had been part of this book.
Right.
Because it allows you to much more deeply understand like the rich political.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because authors who
Problems.
it's so hard to build a world. I mean,
Yeah.
there are very few who can do it and tell a story well at the same
Right.
time. And it actually makes me think of one of my favorites, I've talked about before, who N.K. Jemisin, who has the ability to like tell you this entirely gripping story and build this world that you've never heard of, thought of, seen, heard, imagined before. In like 100 pages, you're there. You're in the
Yes.
world, and
Yeah.
you're totally engrossed in the story, and you don't even notice it happening. And that's such a skill to
It
have.
is.
You know, it reminds me of the book that we read, Another Day
One
and Someday.
Oh, for
one.
Yeah.
round table.
Who's the author?
No,
of it?
it's more. Isn't it called?
There's three. It's part of a trilogy, and one
Oh,
is
I don't
Another Day. One is
remember.
called Someday. And
Yeah, and it's somebody who wakes up in a different body each
Every
day.
day.
So
Yeah.
he is changing gender every not every single day. He switches between genders because he wakes up in a different body. That
Right.
doesn't have the science fiction mystery part to it, but that gender, playing with the gender.
Right. It
That's
still
really-
makes you think about the same
Yeah,
issues.
it makes
Yeah.
that's really a thinking
how
book
people
too.
relate to each other
Yeah.
with or without gender in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even bigger than that is the way that it makes you think about and discuss disability too. So that's
Of
a really
course,
big
of
part
course.
about
Yeah.
technological assistance
Assistance
and
and-
how much the government should play into that or not,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Right.
how it feels to navigate a world that isn't made for you.
Yeah,
really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were first talking, and you said that he couldn't move, or she couldn't move, the character couldn't move, it reminded me of that movie, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
I've seen that. Yes.
Because in that, the man is completely paralyzed, and all he can do is blink his eyes, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was a really claustrophobic film.
Right, yeah, so I do see that kind of total body paralysis aspect of it is very similar, but there is an important aspect of this book that discusses how the sufferers, Haydens they're
Yeah.
called, they create a virtual space that allows them to create avatars of themselves and create communities like parks and structures. So that movie kind of focused all on the prison of what that feels
Yeah.
like and how isolated you would be in that situation, where this book goes on to say that the Haydens do not feel isolated. They do not feel in prison. They've created a space for themselves.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, you don't ever see them as victims. You see them as a new, beautiful kind of human.
That's great that he was able to create that.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend it for people who are into sci-fi or world building in general. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. All right, thank you. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about some short stories, and this is Curtis Sittenfeld's You Think It, I'll Say It. And I wanted to talk about short stories because there's been this real renaissance of short stories and poetry recently, and we're all excited about it at the library. We have a display, and we are wanting to, get people interested in reading it because all the cool kids are doing it right now, basically. I don't really know why. Of course, yes, we are the cool kids. I don't know if this is something to do with like our soundbite mentality right now that we like short stuff, or that people are just realizing the genius of people who can pack a real punch into a short space. In any case, this is a really good example of something that I think will draw you in and make you want to read more. I didn't want to put it down. It was good. She's really accessible. Like a lot of people, I think, are afraid of short stories for some reason, and I just want to say that this one is like really easy to read. You can just sit down and whoosh, she sucks you in because she does character. This is definitely for people who like character, and you walk right into somebody's head. And the kind of cool thing about her, though, is that you walk into somebody's head and you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh yeah, I kind of know this. I know this guy or I know this girl, and it might be somebody like there's like a suburban mom who's like secretly wishing for the downfall of this old high school sort of rival that she had, who's become famous, or there's this guy that goes out to dinner with a woman that he thought he knew very well in the past. Or the 40-something guy who's kind of completely uninterested in committing. Never heard of that before. But he's carrying on this kind of secret, this email conversation with this unknown person. You don't even know who it is. And he seems very committed to that. So there's always these little twists. So you get to know these characters, and you're thinking, yeah, I recognize him or her, and I'm there. I get it. And then all of a sudden, I don't, because she does something. She tweaks it. She throws you this little curve, or maybe it's more like a change-up if you want a better baseball metaphor. I'm not very good at baseball metaphors, but she throws you this little thing that just twists it when you think you're comfortable, and then makes you go a whole different direction. So the title, it comes from a game that this woman, one of the characters, plays. The game is called You Think It, I'll Say It, and she plays it with the husband of one of her good friends, who they like the two couples go out together all the time, and when they go to parties and stuff, they play this game. You Think It, I'll Say It. And it's like she starts to talk kind of cattily about some of the people at the party that they both know. And she'll say something kind of not very nice about them, or, make a prediction about what's going to happen to somebody. And he just kind of sits there and listens. And turns out she's kind of falling for this guy, this that she's playing this game with. And, you kind of think it's going to go along, and this is going to be the beginning of maybe how they're going to hook up, or how the marriage is going to fall apart, or something like that. And that's not what happens. So that's what she does to you every single time, and it feels like one thing, and then boom,
I feel like that would be hard to do in the format of a short story.
20 pages. Think about that. In 20 pages, to draw you, suck you in like that, and then move you someplace completely different. And that's what almost every one of these stories does. I really enjoyed it, and it's very modern. It's very, I don't know. Again, like people you might know. If they're not like you exactly, they're probably somebody you've met before.
So modern in terms of present day, like references and experiences.
And the language is modern. The language is like you and me sitting here talking to each other. It's very, there's nothing literary about it, although she's very intuitive, very astute in both her observations of people, obviously, and in her use of language. Because you have to be a short story writer. You have to be able to use language. Every word has to count, right? Just like same as a poem. So it's in the end, this book is kind of all about the assumptions that we make about other people, about ourselves in everyday life, and how that life just comes along and kind of tweaks them.
Throws you a curve.
Throws you that, the change-up. It's a change-up. So again, very much for people who read for character all the way. And also a great beach read. I mean, I think short stories of any kind are great beach reads because you can just dip in, you can just take one, and then you can
go for a dip
in the sea, and then exactly.
Sounds like a great collection of short stories for people who have not read short stories.
Yes, I would completely say that. I think that you find yourself easily. It's like picking up a magazine almost, only it has a little bit, there's a little bit more. A good story about some celebrity or something, only this is more like about the person next door. So that's Curtis Sittenfield's You Think It, I'll Say It.
Awesome.
Highly recommended. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
Well, I can talk about
Jasmine
Ward's Sing Unburied Sing, which has gotten a lot of press, and deservedly so, because it's just a magnificent book. It's a story about how the past affects the present and how deeply entrenched racism is. Like her other book, Savage the Bone, it takes place in rural Mississippi. It follows 13-year-old JoJo and his little sister Kayla, and they live with their grandparents while their mother Leonie comes in and out of their lives. She's a drug addict, she causes chaos, and their father, who's white, is in prison upstate Mississippi. She draws all these characters with really great insight and sympathy. It's told from three perspectives. So this one was told from first person of one of the sisters, and then the third person. This one's told from the 15-year-old boy, Jojo, his mother, Leonie, and then a spirit of a man that was in prison with Jojo's grandfather when he was young and at a brutal work camp. He's a spirit. And so this book does have elements of that, of the magical realism. Most of the novel is a harrowing trip where Leonie and the son and her daughter, who's a toddler, go to pick up the father. And the book is not easy. It's a hard book, but there is a lot of hope in it. The way she draws scenery is just so amazing. You really feel like you're there in sweltering Mississippi. It's just really well done. And the other thing is she talks about in her descriptions, it's the smell, it's the touch, it's the sound, it's the taste, and even the spirit. So there's all these senses that she brings to it. And just an example of the language, when Leonie, the mother, is talking, she's describing how the mother is talking, how she's laughing, and she describes it as being like dry mud and hard red clay. It's really just wonderful.
So I love those unexpected descriptions.
She really.
Are the characters connected to the land like that? Is that something that she uses?
Yeah, I think they're really connected to the land. I mean, she makes them feel like, she talks about that red clay of the laughter. That is what they're made of. They're made of the area around Mississippi that they're from.
Right. So place is big in this one.
Place is very big, and it's a great, because it has all those elements. It's got the place setting, it's got the tone, it's got character, it's got all these themes, racism, classism, loving your child, loyalties. It's a great book group book.
Yeah.
A little less to unpack.
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
But I just want to put a little thing in there that it's there's violence, not a lot, but there is, and there's bad language. So if any of those were
Put
to
you off.
set you off,
Right.
it's not the book to go with.
Is it who? I'm trying to think. Is
Well,
there
she's
somebody
like-
that she reminds you of?
Toni Morrison.
I was gonna say Toni
Yeah.
Morrison, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. I mean, just the way you're describing the language and stuff, it reminds me of Toni Morrison.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And also her previous book, Savage the Bone, it's got the same place, Beau Sauvage, and the same wonderful character development and stuff. It's hard to think of other.
No, I mean, I think she stands alone. I mean, people are just
Yeah.
raving about her. It's such a popular book.
I mean, the Essex, other literary books, like The Essex Serpent, beautiful language, beautiful setting, beautiful
Yeah.
themes. But Mississippi is so far from that. One takes place in historical England, and that's just so different.
Right, that was one that we talked about a
Yeah.
couple times ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I'm dying to read both
Yeah.
of those. I
I know,
haven't
me too.
read either of them, and I really want to.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else, or I have another one I can talk about if you are? Yeah. Okay. I'll go for it. I want to bring up just for a little bit more variety, the Wright
yeah.
brothers by David McCullough. This isn't a brand new book. It's been around for a couple of years now, but I am not a nonfiction reader. And I just discussed this in my book group last night, and a lot of people around the table are not nonfiction readers, and we all loved it. We really did. This guy knows how to tell. David McCullough, you may know him from PBS, and he's written many historicals, and he's fantastic. He knows how to tell a story. He knows how to draw. He knows how to turn letters and diaries into just gold. You know, it reads like fiction, so you don't have to be scared of it. And then there's the amazing story of these two amazing guys. You know, all we ever learn in school is, the Wright brothers, they went to Kitty Hawk, they flew a plane, and voila. You know, that's
Right.
kind of all you get. You get nothing else. But there's this whole story behind it, and he delves into their letters and their diaries, and they weren't really overly emotional people who gave away a lot, but through those letters, they were a very close-knit family, and he brings out a lot about the family, so there's a whole lot about character in here. I mean, there's also a lot about building planes, but you could read it mostly for the character and for the incredible saga of what happened when they finally finished the plane and they wanted to show it to the world. They went to France. I mean, did you know that part? They went to France, and because France was wild about flying.
Yeah.
And you know, there's this whole thing where they were hanging with the hoi polloi in France, and nobody really believed that they had done it, and so you know, it's quite a tale.
Do they talk? Does he talk about other people that are trying to win the race to build the first plane?
He does, yes. He does talk about somewhat, but there are a few people. I guess there are some people that he didn't. He only very briefly mentions that could have gotten a bit more mention from what I've heard from some other criticism. But I just want to definitely recommend this. Easy read, great to listen, really great to listen. And I think our time is getting near, so I'm just going to quickly wrap up. I want to make sure that you know that next month we are going to be doing our annual beach reads lists. So there'll be one more of us here, and we'll be talking about great things to read in the summertime. And I also wanted to say to you again, to extend an invitation to everybody to make sure that you come in and talk to us if you need a book to read, because that's what we do at the library. We love to do it. As you can tell, we like to talk about books a lot. And if you're feeling stuck and you don't know what to read next, or you've just read something really good and you want more of the same, or maybe you haven't read in years and you just want to get back into it, come to the reference desk. Don't be shy. We really love to talk about books. And so we invite you to come, and we will see you next time on Beebe Book Buzz. So.